Welcome back to some Qigong conversations with Adam Chan and Dr. Michael Smith. I'm Dr. Michael Smith.
Hey,
So you know who Adam Chan is. And we decided to sit down and have a few conversations about Qigong. And today we're going to talk about how each of us learned Qigong. So since I'm talking, I'll start. Adam, how did you learn Qigong?
From you.
Well, actually, that was easy.
Yeah. I remember 92, 93. I was still in high school. And then I was always interested in Qigong because it's part of my culture growing up with Kung Fu movies. I mean, and everything in the Cantonese language, probably the all Chinese language is Qi, right? The way you talk about the weather, your morality, everything is Qi, the eating, everything. So I was always interested in Qigong. And I remember at the time, if memory serves me correct, on your flyer, it said Tai Chi, Bagua, and Sheng. And then later on, when I started training with you, it was each one in natural gate boxing too. So I go, all right. And then you show me post training. And I think I did a couple of classes of one-legged post training. And that made a huge impact on me because I mean, there's one thing hearing about Qigong your whole life, but there's another thing experiencing it. So that was my first experience with that. And then after you moved away to Nelson, I got in a car accident and then I couldn't walk for a long time. And the doctor told me I'll never do martial arts again. That scared the crap out of me because I was really into martial arts. Then my friend Bernard found a Chinese medicine doctor in Richmond who's very famous, apparently, in Beijing. He was a head professor of medicine in all of Beijing. And we went to his house in Richmond and he kind of just touched my back and didn't do much. He just touched my back. I'm like, what's this guy doing, man? But then I can walk again after a few treatments. So I was like, huh. Then I found out he was a master of each one. And I go, okay, another master of each one. There's a lot of them in Richmond, right? But they go, no, he was a student of you, Zhongfan, who was the top inheritor student of Longhengzai, the founder of each one. And then I found out he worked in the same hospital as the founder. So I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm in front of a lineage holder, right? So I went back to his house to learn, and he said, I don't teach each one, I'm a doctor. And I don't speak Mandarin, so he keeps on saying in the worst Cantonese possible, doctor. And I'm saying the worst Mandarin possible. I want to learn each one. So I went back to his house over and over again with Chinese pastry and presents. And eventually he just opened the door and pointed his finger like, I can't get rid of this kid, so come on in. So I came in and I hired a translator, more like begging my high school friend to translate. And he had these old cardboards written in really simplified Chinese. And then he taught me a few classes of Qigong, 5-element Qigong, sealing the Qi Qigong, some form of Tibet hand position Qigong, and some acupressure, but I'm not good at that. And so that kind of helped me understand how my body kind of feel, the history. That helped me out. Then about 5 years ago, I almost died from, I did martial arts for 39 years, 24 years out of that. I trained 6 days and 4 nights a week. Every day I would train 3 hours by myself, 3 hours with my boys, get a job at graveyard security, test it on criminals, write down what I did right or wrong, redesign the drills like a football coach. And that's stupid because after 24 years of that, I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't speak, I couldn't count to 20. I lost fine motor skills, I had brain fog. So first time in my life, I had anxiety and depression. I did PTSD counseling, went to see a neurologist, psychologist, psychiatrist, acupressure, Qigong Twin Da, acupuncture, naturopath, occupational hazard therapist, post-concussion therapy, and there's probably a couple of things I forgot. Nothing worked. So they tried to give me drugs. That didn't work at all, so I threw them away. Then I got Professor Jing to come out for a dim sum, and he said, it's time to do Qigong, Adam. I said, Sifu, fix me. He said, nothing is going to work. I said, do your acupuncture. He's like, no. And I said, do your herbology. He's like, I said, you once fixed my back and allowed me to walk again. Can you please fix me again? He said, this time, no. I said, what? And then he goes, do Qigong. I said, I do Qigong 30 years. He said, no, you didn't. You do a little bit here, you do a little bit there, forget it. Really do Qigong. So I went home and I stand, and then I couldn't stand because I was so weak, I was throwing up. I couldn't even stand 5 minutes. And plus I had OCD and a lot of anxiety, so I needed to move. But the system he taught me has no movement. So I phoned my friend and mentor, Steve Smith. And because I remember vividly, Grandmaster Fujian system has a lot of movement because it has all four, unlike each one. Because each one was developed in the communist era, so a little bit different. So I got a student and friend to drive me to Walla Walla, and Steve was, I owe him my life because he taught me the whole system. And I went home and I practiced 4 to 6 hours a day every day. It's almost 5 years now. All my symptoms are gone. And I'm happier now than when I was getting high off martial arts. But yes, that's a brief example of why I love this stuff so much. Yeah. What about you? How did you start it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I remember when you were going through that hard time, and I'm so glad that you and Steve got together and you found a way to practice, because I've known you since you were like a high school student. So, I love you. It was hard. I'm so glad you're here, man. I'm glad you made it.
Yes, yeah, that was close. It was a close call.
So for me, and I want to keep this short because it's most of my life. I'm almost 60 years old now, believe it or not. So it's kind of a long time. So I had a few sort of odd experiences as a kid that made me curious about, I guess, what we now would think of as like a mind-body connection and awareness and stuff. So I was just like, I felt some things and experienced some things. I grew up in the bush without TV or radio, so I had no way to ask anyone. There was no internet. So I'm like, I'm gonna try and find somebody who seems to like have an idea. When I moved to the city first time, I was 10, around then, and I went to a martial arts club, and I didn't really like what they were doing. Went to a different martial arts club, and I was about 10 or 11, and we were doing some basic qigong warm-ups, and then we did some zazen, Japanese martial arts. And I love the fighting, the punching, the kicking. I've been a martial artist, almost 50 years, 47 years now. So it was a lot of fun. But honestly, and I always feel shy saying this, I really kind of love the meditation and the soft movement part a little bit more sometimes, because it reminded me of that thing that I remember from being like a little kid.
Right.
So we moved a few years later. My family moved, and then I ended up meeting a man named Eric Tuttle, Sifu Eric Tuttle, who I still get to go and train with every once in a while, which is amazing. We've known each other for 40 years. And he taught, he's got 2 or 3 lineages in his background, from Shaolin to Jing, bone marrow washing, all of that, China Zen practice, and a lot of Daoist and Gong or inner cultivation practice. So I trained with him almost every day for about 7 years. And we did all these different kind of martial arts, the stuff you and I were training when we met. But again, there was just standing meditation on each one, but so many different forms, styles, seated qigong, self-healing qigong, acupressure qigong, like all that stuff. And then eventually Eric had said, Michael, maybe you should go look for some other teachers who have specialized talents, because, you've kind of learned everything that I can show you that would be new or interesting. The rest of it would be really boring for you because you're really young. So get out there and keep learning. And then when you're ready, you'll just start dropping stuff off. And I was, I think, 23 or 4. So I moved to the West Coast, found a bunch of teachers, Sugong Wei, Liang Shaoyu, Steve Smith's teacher, Dave Harris, who learned from Fukyong, another student of Fukyong, Andy Dale. I could go on and on and on. There's probably 20 other people that I'm not mentioning. And if you're watching this, I'm sorry, I'm trying to save time here. But I was like a sponge. I just wanted to understand how to understand it. Because, you can learn, you can know, you can memorize, you can refine, but there was always something beneath that. And then I ended up kind of devoting some period of time to a Taoist initiation, went off to live as a hermit by myself for a few months and practiced Neitan, or, well, that's what I thought I was doing back then, but I was doing my best. For about 4 hours a day, and then Kung Fu and internal martial arts for about 4 hours a day. And that changed my life. Just being perfectly alone, no electricity, no nothing, living in the forest, like I did when I was a kid, training, meditation and Qigong martial arts, I was convinced I was never going to leave. I wanted to be a hermit forever, but life being life. I came back and I was like, I'm going to go to China to become a Chinese doctor. And just before I went to China, like literally 4 days before I signed a check to get ready to go to China, I was invited to study in an oral tradition of Taoism and Chinese medicine here in Canada. So I did that. So now I have this formal Taoist lineage of practice. I've been a doctor of Chinese medicine, teaching people Chinese medicine for about 30 years now, which honestly has distracted me a bit from training the things I would like to do on the inside. But every time I have a break, and I have to say the pandemic was a bit of a curse, but a bit of a gift, because I had a few months to just practice for hours again every day. And for me, call it Qigong, we could call it Daoyin, we could call it Niangong, Neitan, Neikong, Fred's, funny elbow tattoo. I really don't care what I'm going to call it, but the inquiry of state and awareness and sensation and meaning and emptiness and life and love and being a being in the world there's so much more going on than just knowing stuff and doing stuff. It's like this whole world or universe just behind, I don't know, the stuff that most of us think about and talk about and want to get ourselves into, that for me is just way more interesting. The inner cultivation practices. That's why I teach a lot of inner cultivation practice now, and I think it's going to save a lot of people's lives. Like you went through what you went through. Oh, and I skipped a thing. A couple of years before you and I met, 2.5 years before you and I met, I had a really bad rock climbing accident. Almost died. I couldn't really train in any serious way for almost a year, but that whole year, all I did was Qigong, a kind of Niangong or inner healing practice. I had different teachers, I had different healers work with me, and I went from like, I'm going to be a full-time martial artist to I'm going to be a martial artist who's really good at Qigong, because I could get back to training when physiotherapists, doctors, surgeons, because I fell and smashed into a mountain. Like the fact that I'm still walking, they said I would never walk normally again. So after healing, with all those practices, then I ended up moving to the coast, and about a year later, I met you. So, I just wanted to say, I really empathize with that story, because this stuff works. But, Qigong, the Gong part is your capacity, your willingness, your patience. I think you said, your ability to eat bitter, to taste sweet, to do the work, to let go of the stuff that's easy or that you want, that you're grasping for, to find out what's really in the bottom of the ocean. There's nothing more interesting to me than that. And, I've kind of committed my life to hopefully eventually creating the conditions for a Taoist monastery in Canada where people can come and live in retreat and just train for a while. Because, you can't really get to certain places if you can't get away from busyness and apprehension, anticipation, lists of things to do, stress, for at least a couple of months.
That would be beautiful, a retreat center.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, for those of you who are new to our series of conversations, welcome to the conversations that we're having. Adam Chan, Michael Smith. We had just had a little check-in with how we both learned Qigong, and if you're interested, please check us out in the next video. Please like and share, because that's how Google and YouTube and everybody and social media works. And there'll be some links in the description to the different courses that I offer and some that Adam offer as well.
Okay, see you guys next time.